Well, welcome back, ladies. We're super excited to be here with you today, and I have a fantastic guest. So let me get into this. Linda Shively has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, is the best-selling author, international award-winning speaker, and neuroscience and mindset expert. Girl, I'm so excited about all the things that you have done. It's so amazing. She has presented across the world as a NASDAQ, at the World NASDAQ, the New York City Bar Association. There's just so much for me to read. I'm just like in wow. The Academy of Medicine of Mexico, Harvard Club of Boston, Walmart, and Carnegie Hall. I mean, Linda, this is just amazing. Ladies, hold on. I'm still going on. So stick with me here because she's got a lot to share with us today. Linda has been a multi-time guest host on ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox Television, featured in a movie with Wina. Like, hello, I'm going to ask you a little bit about that because obviously I'm curious. And Jeff Daniels even performed at the Rose Bowl, over 90,000 people. Okay, I get tongue tied here sometimes on podcasts, and that's a lot for me because I am a talker. But Linda, 90,000 people. Like, hello, this is amazing. She is a growth mindset professional. And listen, the royalty has asked and sought her out for help in, navigating stress. Like, who doesn't have stress and overwhelm in their lives by eliminating these self-sabotaging patterns? Like, ladies, we talk about this all the time. So I'm excited to introduce San Francisco Bay native, wow, master practitioner of NLP, which my audience already knows and loves this. So because I love it. She's an executive coach and certified laughter yoga leader. Linda, welcome to the podcast of She's in Charge of Business. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Becky.
Wow, like so accomplished. I feel like, what have I done, Becky? So excited to have you here today. But before we get into our chat, I'd love to let the listeners know, first of all, we just met each other probably 2 weeks ago?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, we were at a women's retreat right here in Mesa, Arizona, where I live is in Arizona. So knowing that you're in California, I'm in Arizona. This is fantastic. So I just want to give our listeners a little bit how we met. So we actually met at a women's conference where there was about 140 women in the room. And we just happened to cross paths at the very end, actually, and was able to chat up a little bit and asked you to be on the podcast because I know that you had so many amazing things to share with our audience today. So that's what's happening, listeners. Also, I want to let you know our overall topic for today is self-confidence, mindset, and how your business as owners, how we sabotage ourselves and what can we do about it. So Linda, thank you so much. Like I said, this has been amazing. But first off, how were you in a movie? Like, how did that all happen?
Well, there have been many reasons that I've done the things that I've done, but I want to share with you why I do what I do. Because back in 2005, I was sitting in the pediatric intensive care with my 3-year-old daughter, Jessica. It was days before her 4th birthday. And the head of pediatric intensive care came in and just on his day off. I mean, he should have been skiing. It was 2 days after Christmas. He came in to talk to me and he's like, she's not going to make it. And I said, what do you mean? Does that mean I have to pull the plug, tell you to kill my daughter? And just at that moment, all the alarms go off. Beep, 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 code blue, code blue. Everybody's rushing in, ready to revive her. And the doctor, it was unbelievable. He was so calm and he just waved his hand and everybody just stopped. And we all just surrounded her bed. And I picked up Jessica one last time and I could still feel that life in her just for a little while. and then it was gone.
Mm.
And I knew that I had to do something to keep her memory alive. I mean, I could have just let her life end, but I knew that I wanted to help other people.
Mm.
And by continuing the walks that we'd started to raise money for her condition, spinal muscular atrophy, we've now raised over $1.5 million and have funded research. And now there are treatments. And so kids are able to run and jump and play where none of that was possible when she was alive. And I'm proud that her life has made an impact and that she's continuing to share her joy, even though she's not still here.
Mm.
And the combination of that, she and I actually escaped 2 weeks after, 2 weeks before she died, because it was an unhealthy relationship. And knowing that, most people are like, oh my gosh, the death of a child, that's the worst thing that could ever happen. Yet dealing with the effects of the abuse was even worse to navigate. And
Mm.
that is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I know that it's possible to get through it. I know that it's possible to stop believing in the lies that maybe somebody else told you and to actually shift that and change that. And so I'm on a mission to continue to share Jessica's joy and to help people get out of their own way.
Wow. And I can totally relate to you, Linda. And I had no idea this was your story or part of it, but I had also lost a child. And, it it's something that until you've been through it, you don't understand it. And then on top of that, you had an abusive relationship that you are enduring at the same time. Um, you know, it's a lot to overcome and to find joy in what you do today to help others. So that is just a strong mission. You've got to have and we talk about this all the time in business. You have got to have something so strong and so powerful that to push you through, because let's face it, life gets at you, life can hit you down, and you got hit down. You got
Yeah,
hit down hard, but how you pick yourself up, right, is something else. And so thank you so much for, really sharing that, because it's not easy to constantly talk about, but I'm sure at the same time, you want to let people know that had this little ball of joy and who she was and who she continues to be,
yeah.
even though she's not presently here. I'm sure she rides on your coattails saying, "Go, mom, go."
Exactly. And no, I didn't know that we're both in the same club that nobody wants to join. And
Mm.
that we can talk about more at some other point maybe, but but it's just knowing that there's a reason for why we do what we do, and keeping, because everybody has a story
Mhm.
and what that story might be, but how do you actually let yourself be in, and how do you show up for the people that are in your life now, and what are you doing, and what are you doing to get in your own way?
Yeah,
And
and that is one of the things that we're going to talk about today, because obviously you've done the work and you've gotten yourself through this, and how you keep getting through, because it's not just an incident, right? It's something that we choose every single day. And so what are the most common reasons you find people not living to their fullest to find their joy?
Well, what I talk about is I actually named them, I call them my joy stealing dragons,
Mm.
because I find that when our joy is being taken away from us, or we feel like it is, that why not name them? And
Mm.
so the first one is second guessing Sally. And she wants you to second guess every decision that you're making. And make a decision, be confident in it, and then all of a sudden, well, maybe I should do it differently. Maybe I need to rethink it. And that doesn't serve you, because you're always going back and forth and not feeling confident. And then the next one is no good Nancy. And no good Nancy wants you to believe that you weren't born good enough. No matter what you do, she wants you to think, no, you could have done it better. And even if you do succeed, she's like, you still could have, you didn't need to do it that way. It's like no matter what you do, it's like, no, it could be better. You can't do that, anything. And that eats away at what's possible. And I've had clients that just, no matter how successful they are, they still, people that have 8-figure businesses are still having these nagging thoughts. And it's
Well,
like,
like they talk about next level, next devil, right? No
exactly.
matter where you're at in your life, there's still that next level to
Right.
break through or overcome or
Because you're at, whatever you've done, and you're like, okay, I'm finally good. Now I'm going to move up here. And it's like, surprise, there's more.
exactly.
And the next one is Perfect Paula. And Perfect Paula wants you to have everything laid out perfectly, to make sure everything is exact. If you've ever written an email and then rewrote it again and rewrote it again, and you never get around to sending it because you're still thinking about, how do I say it exactly the right way? That is Perfect Paula showing up. And that, my clients have had that happen where they don't actually get the marketing out because they're trying to get it perfect.
Perfect. Yes.
And that delays anything, so their clients don't know that they exist and they can't actually serve them. And then there's Judging Jenny. And Judging Jenny wants you to compare yourself to other people to make you believe that you're not good enough. And then also to judge other people to like feel a little bit better. Like, oh, well, they don't know what they're doing, or maybe they're really good. And that constant comparing doesn't serve in any useful way, because I have clients that are growing their business, but they're always worried about what other people are going to think. Like, oh, well, maybe I
Right.
shouldn't do this. Maybe
What would the neighbor think? What
exactly.
would my, high school friends think? I think, it's like we can tell ourselves all these stories.
Exactly. And it doesn't help. And then the next one is Overwhelmed Ophelia.
Mm,
And yeah, maybe you have named a better dragon, but anyway, Overwhelmed Ophelia, she just wants you to have that packed schedule and the overwhelmed list of all these things that you need to do. No matter what she's having you do, it's just like over and over and over. Can't keep everything done. And she thrives on that. And it's almost like, I don't know, if the people that are like, oh, well, I'm too busy. I can't do that. I'm too busy. I'm too busy. And it's almost like a badge of honor
right.
that she wants you to carry. And none of these dragons serve you. And so it's like, how do you figure out how to actually work with them? Because
Mm,
they will pop up, like you just said, depending on where you are in life, they're going to show up. And maybe in different contexts, different ones are more active, but knowing like what is going on and how do we actually address all of these, because it's part of our everyday being, no matter what's going on.
yes. And I love how you made it so simple, right? Naming it dragons by the name, because simplicity is everything. We're so busy these days of really nonsense stuff. Let's face it. We're being bombarded by everything in life. And I find that the more simplify I keep it, the better your clients understand it and they can actually see themselves in it. Like, I can identify with that. How can I move on? Right. So, my next question is, what are some ways to set more joy in your life if you got all those things attacking you, all these dragons attacking?
Well, one of the ways, the principles that I find help to tame these dragons, the first one is live a better story. And what
Mm,
I mean by that is the story that we create provides meaning. And so, what is that story? And is it serving you? Because maybe you made up something about a relationship from the past. Maybe you made up a story about your childhood. And what is that still continuing in your life? And is it serving you? Because if it is serving you, great. Most of the time, the ones I hear aren't. And so,
yeah.
how do you retell it in a powerful way rather than being the victim of circumstances? What is it that you can be empowered? Because my story used to tell me what to do, how to be, how to feel. And now I tell it in an empowered way so that I'm able to take control over it and actually use it for my good and help other people with it. And the next one is tell time what to do. Because people have often said, oh, well, time heals everything. No, I don't.
Mhm.
And you probably know this from your own personal experience. It's like time doesn't actually do anything except keep going. What
It's like a
matters,
choice.
it's like
You
what you do with the time. Like,
Yeah.
how do you show up? What are you using your time for? And actually choosing how to use your time effectively. Because you can make all sorts of decisions or not, and the decision will still happen. Because, like, sometimes people say, oh, well, I'm not going to actually do this. I'm not going to apply for the job. I'm not going to write the proposal. I'm not going to reach out to that loved one that I really care about. And then something happens and time goes by. Or I want to have a kid, but I'm going to keep waiting. And then that by itself is a decision, because sometimes the biological clock stops ticking. And so no matter what you do, there's a decision that's in there. And
Yeah.
so making the decision of how are you going to spend your time? How are you going to direct your time? I had a client who would spend her time on what she felt were meaningful activities, but it wasn't moving her business forward.
Mhm.
And so she was wasting a lot of energy organizing this group, leading that group, doing, serving on this board, but her business that was her passion and was her calling in life wasn't getting any attention. And when she recognized that and we worked through it, then she could say no to what really wasn't serving her so that she could spend the time on what mattered.
Yeah, and I find that, a lot of women, have just grown up, doing for others and not for themselves. And really turning that around to really look at what's important to them and where they want to be, but still serve and do impact work. But they don't take the time just to be who they are, right? To build the business because they're so busy doing for others. And we see it so much in this industry, just as women in general, because that's who we are. So it's really a switching of that mindset. And I'd love to go back to what you said about your story, because
Yeah.
like you said, we all have a story, but what is the story you keep on telling yourself? Because especially if we're talking business, you know, yes, we all have a story, and that's the point of your entrepreneurship is usually part of your story, right? It is the pain, but how do you bring out the joy in that, right? To really effectively to help somebody else see like on the other side. So I love that you talked about that, because your story is where it starts, but it's not where it ends, right? It's the beginning of the journey, but where's the results in that story so you can help support somebody else. So knowing what is that story, right? So
Yeah.
you can find that joy in the story of what you're talking about. So I love that you shared that, because I think a lot of women struggle with that piece. They don't want to share the pain, but or they want to share more pain and not the joy of it, or they only share the joy and not the pain. And I'm saying you need to have both.
Yeah. It's what's the complete story and what's the story up until now, because you get to rewrite or write it for what you want it to be. And just because that has been your story until this moment doesn't mean you can't change it and tell it differently.
Yeah.
And then the other is choose your voices, because we all have voices around us. We have the people around us and we have the voices inside our heads. And yeah, I know, Becky, you probably have those voices in your head. It's like we all.
Somehow we have a lot of them at some points, and some we try to knock them down as fast as they come in.
Exactly. And it's like, where do these voices come from? What are you? And usually they're not yours, because we think that they're ours because they're in our head.
Mhm.
But they're often from maybe a parent or an elementary school teacher or a class bully that have gotten implanted, but they don't actually belong there. And it's like the more you believe it, it becomes your own. And it's like, wait a minute, this isn't mine. And so
Yes.
choosing what voices do you listen to, and telling the voices that are empowering, and shifting it so that you can actually, one of my clients was like, yeah, I'm telling myself nicer things and it works.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you show up differently.
because
I always say to my clients too, your first thought is not your fault. You got it from somewhere else. But the second one and what you do with it is, it is called a
right.
choice,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly. And so, and then there's the people that are literally around you. And just because somebody is close to you doesn't mean they have to be living inside of your head. And so
And
the
that one can be tough because if they're in your family, maybe you have a child that is more on the not so upside. You're trying to help them, but they're not. That can be hard just living in it in your everyday life,
yeah,
or like a spouse, a
right.
sister. You have to really choose who you're going to listen to and what you can mentally shut out and still be there around to support.
Exactly. Because there are some people that you can't, I mean, some people say, oh, just completely exclude them from your life. Well, you may not be able to do that, but maybe minimize some of the time and energy
Time and effort. Yeah.
that, at least to the energy of what it is that's being said, so that you can shift it to what may be more positive for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I find that sometimes in my own family that I'm like, I don't have the energy for this today, so therefore I'm choosing not to. I got to find
Right.
it some other time. But
Right.
you have to choose that, and really programming my brain every single day with things that really keep you up and going because that's the real work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because this isn't a one and done. This is a practice. And how do you keep doing it? And every step is closer to what you need to do. And of course, there are ways to make massive shifts. And knowing that these are even possible, because we don't think about this on a regular basis. And
Mm-mm.
it's like starting to be aware of, like, oh, maybe I'm the one that's in the way of all of why the activities aren't getting done the way I want them to. Or
Yeah, I was just talking to my dad about this just yesterday, about having a fixed mindset over a growth mindset. And my dad's up in his 70s, and so, you know, I and we do, right? We have such a fixed mindset at some things because we say it is what it is. This is it. This is what and we're so fixated on keeping that mindset that we might have learned how many years ago from past generations that has been poured into us, and
right.
not having this growth mindset that there's so much more out there that I don't know about, and just getting curious around that. I find it fascinating because that was me in 2012 when I met this mentor, Bob Proctor, and he talked a lot about that. And it was mind blowing to me because I was like, "Whoa, I thought I had a growth mindset." Because this is like the first time I'm like hearing this back then, right? And I was like, "Whoa, I have more of a fixed mindset. I need to change that because that's not the girl I want to be."
Right.
Right. So you got to step into that human, that woman that you want to be now, not who she was yesterday, but
Exactly.
now. Right. So
Yeah.
I find that fascinating. And I feel like it's not talked about enough in that manner for somebody to really understand it, what's happening, because I didn't I didn't realize it until it was spoken, right? And then seeing the two sides was just like overwhelming to me. I was like, oh, I thought I was a more positive person. I thought I was a more, all these things that I thought about myself. And I was like, whoa, I need to take a check on that. So, ladies, if you're listening, just Google fixed mindset over growth, and it'll just bring you all these things. And I'm telling you, it will help you go to the next level. Okay. So, can you share some practices, strategies for overcoming fear of failure that often holds entrepreneurs from reaching their full potential?
Yeah, when you're feeling afraid, it's like, what is it that you can actually do? And often it's taking that small step,
Mm,
just doing some action and actually moving yourself forward, because often the fear freezes us. I mean, there's the fight, flight, and freeze. So
yeah.
depending, everybody has a different way that it shows up for them. And if you're in that frozen state, it's like do something. And it may not actually be toward the goal that you're looking for, but just do something to get you moving. Because you know how, Becky, if you're in a car and you're trying to steer it, it doesn't go anywhere. You're like trying to force the wheel. But once it's moving just a little bit, you can change the direction.
Yeah.
And so taking some action, go for a 5-minute walk and then come back and see now what, clear the head instead of like staring at the computer and, oh, what do I do? What do I do? I don't know. And then nothing is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to. I find myself sometimes just when I'm writing copy for my emails or social media, all of a sudden you get in this mind funk, is what I call it, and you can't get out of it by doing the same thing, just sitting there banging your head against the wall, right? Like I said, you can't move the wheel without a little gas, pedal to the gas. You can't. So you have to move your body so your mind shifts, and that's when that comes into play. So I love how you give these simple suggestions, because these are the things that are exactly, Linda, what visual. When you can give a visual to something, people put themselves in that place, right? And they
Yeah.
can see themselves saying, yeah, I can't move the wheel. So if I just move, doesn't matter what I'm doing, just move, and your focus goes somewhere else. You can typically get out of that state of mind. Yeah, practical tips, ladies. Really, sometimes the more simpler they are, the better they work, because it's just the truth of the matter. Don't you agree, Linda?
It is, because sometimes we get this convoluted way. Oh, you can take this 20,000 step process, and you're like, what? And it's like, what's the next step? Just what's that little bitty piece that you can do? And I know, like, all of the dragons that I talked about, action is the way to solve it. And then what I've also found is sometimes people don't take it, and they
Yeah.
get in their way of not even being able to take the action. And that, I've figured out ways to help people start moving depending on what's going on. And that's something, I'd be happy to talk to people about, individually, to see, like, what is it that you need to shift so that you can start taking the actions that you want to take.
Got like a subtle block on something that you don't even realize, but somebody else can pull it out of you. And then you have this aha moment. I believe it's in that aha moment that gives you that light of hope, that you can say, okay, I can take action now, because I didn't realize that was actually going on in the background, right? It's like having your computer on all the time. That's what we are, ladies, on all the time. And we're not allowing ourselves to really sit in our own. And you know what? I was like that forever, Linda, being in business for 33 years, owning my own business, family, doing all the things, and I was always on the journey of the destination and not being living in the being, really. And a few years ago, when I learned, that was a new concept to me, because I was always a doer. I mean, I have high energy. I'm a manifesting generator. Like, ladies, I have high energy, but I do crash. I've had to learn, like, especially now that I'm older, like, yeah, 20s, 30s, 40s, I could rock and roll with it, all of it. But now that I'm 52, like, no, like, I'm learning at this age to really lean in, and being who I am is enough, and really learning how, effectively, right? How to slow down. And like you said, just listen to yourself. What are the dragons that are dragging you through that you can overcome and unblock? And if you need support, reach out to get unblocked. Don't sit in that shit. Get out of it as fast as you can, because that's when you get into results. Like
Exactly.
you said, Linda. Yeah, I love that. So, in your experience, what role does self-awareness play into building your self-confidence? And when some actionable steps can you take to develop a deeper understanding of themselves, and really jump into taking action?
Self-awareness is huge. If you're not aware of what's going on, you can't change it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, just like what you were talking about, you're learning with Bob Proctor. It's like, you didn't know that there was a difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset and how you happen to be showing up at that moment. And that's what I find with my clients is that they know something's not working, but they don't know what it is. And like, how do you actually change something if you can't identify what it is that you need to change? And so being able to help them like quickly see that, and like you said, working, reaching out. If you can't figure it out on your own, get a coach, because it's so much easier. Like if you're inside a bottle, you can't read the label on it. But it's like, I have a way, my clients keep referring to it, that I can just see them and I get them. And so quickly I'm able to identify like what's actually going on. And instead of, I don't know if you're a gardener or not, but if you go out in the yard and you just get a weed whacker and whack off all the top of the weeds, they're going to grow back.
Yeah.
But if you actually pull them out from the root, they're gone. And so that's what I help people do, is just get it at the root, get rid of it, and have it be gone so that they don't have to keep having it recur.
Right. Keep growing that particular thing.
Yeah.
Your weed that's growing inside of you. Yeah, I love that. Okay, well, that was fantastic, Linda. Thank you so much. So I understand that you have a free gift for our listeners today, ladies, something to identify which dragon is the most active. Okay, so now I'm dying to know for my own self, which dragon am I, slaying right now? And so that is part of something that you're giving away. Can you give us a little bit more insight on what that is for our listeners today, this free gift?
Yes. So we've talked about some of the dragons, and each dragon is showing up in different contexts of your life. But right now, which is the one that is most active? And so you can take a quick, fun quiz at joystealingdragons.com and go identify just like which one is going on right now. And I'll send you some quick tips of what you can do about it. Just practical ways, easy things that you can do right now to help shift it. And then we can have a quick conversation to see how to navigate those for your specific circumstances. So I'd love to be able to support your audience in that way.
That is so awesome. Okay, ladies, I will make sure that that is in the show notes, so you don't have to remember this. So you can just click the link and grab it. Thank you so much again, Linda, for taking the time out and really sharing with our listeners all the things that you have taught and been through over the years in your own business.
Thank you for having me, and have more joy. Do something in your day to have more joy in your life.
Well, ladies, you heard it. Until next time, own it, embrace it, celebrate the shit out of it, because you, my friend, are taking charge.